The Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos as the holographic display flickered to life. Commander Kaylor, the respected alien diplomat who had championed humanity's inclusion in the Council, stood bound and battered, his usually stoic demeanor replaced by a look of grim defiance. Behind him, a group of masked figures brandished weapons, their stance radiating malice. A gravelly voice cut through the static. "Greetings, esteemed Council. We are the Krasar, and we hold your precious peacemaker. Your corruption ends now." The transmission cut abruptly, plunging the chamber into stunned silence. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, as if a dam had burst, voices exploded in a cacophony of shock, outrage, and fear. Amidst the pandemonium, Chancellor Vincent Ritter sat motionless, his face a mask of controlled fury. His eyes, sharp as flint, scanned the room, taking in the panicked faces of his fellow council members. The Felian representative's suit respirator worked overtime, struggling to keep up with his hyperventilation. The usually serene Lissari councillor paced frantically, her blue skin pale with worry. "Order! We must have order!" The Zentrak Primarch's flanging voice cut through the din, his mandibles flaring with agitation. "We cannot allow ourselves to be ruled by fear. We must approach this situation with calm and reason." Chancellor Ritter's jaw clenched. Calm and reason. The words echoed in his mind, a stark contrast to the fire burning in his gut. He knew Kaylor, had shared meals with him, had stood shoulder to shoulder as they fought for humanity's place among the stars. And now, while his friends suffered at the hands of terrorists, the Council wanted to talk. The debate raged on, voices rising and falling like turbulent waves. The Velan representative argued for caution, his rapid-fire speech outlining the potential diplomatic ramifications of any hasty action. The Drakkar ambassador, predictably, called for immediate military intervention, pounding his fist on the table hard enough to crack its polished surface. Hours crawled by, each moment feeling like an eternity to Ritter. He watched as proposal after proposal was shot down, each plan more convoluted and ineffective than the last. The Council, paralyzed by fear of galactic war, seemed content to hide behind bureaucracy and protocol. As the artificial day cycle of the Council began to wane, casting long shadows across the chamber, Ritter felt something inside him snap. He rose to his feet, the sudden movement drawing all eyes to him. "Enough," he said, his voice low but carrying an unmistakable edge of steel. "While we sit here and debate, Commander Kaylor's life hangs in the balance. Every moment we waste in this chamber is a moment the Krasar have to fortify their position, to move their prisoner, to prepare for our eventual response." The Lissari councillor stepped forward, her expression a mixture of sympathy and caution. "Chancellor Ritter, we understand your frustration, but we must proceed carefully. One wrong move could spark a galactic conflict." Ritter's eyes blazed. "And what of the conflict already at our doorstep? The Krasar have struck at the very heart of our unity. They've taken not just a diplomat, but a symbol of cooperation between our species. Every second we delay emboldens them and weakens us in the eyes of the galaxy." The Zentrak Primarch's mandibles twitched in agitation. "What would you have us do, Chancellor? Launch a full-scale assault based on a single transmission? We don't even know where Kaylor is being held." "No," Ritter conceded, his voice dropping to a dangerous quiet. "But I know someone who can find out." The chamber fell silent, all eyes fixed on the human Chancellor. Even the Drakkar leaned forward, intrigued. "I propose a covert operation," Ritter continued, his words measured but filled with conviction. "A small team, highly skilled, and off the books. They can move faster and more discreetly than any official force. They can gather intelligence, locate Kaylor, and extract him before the Krasar even realize we've acted." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Velan representative's eyes narrowed. "And who would lead this unofficial operation, Chancellor?" Ritter stood tall, his shoulders squared. "Humanity would take full responsibility. We have operatives trained for exactly this kind of high-risk, low-profile mission. If we succeed, the Council maintains plausible deniability. If we fail—" He paused, the weight of his words hanging in the air. "Then humanity alone bears the consequences." Hey there, hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you do, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel to grow and reach more people. Now let's find out what comes next. The debate exploded anew, but Ritter tuned it out. He could see the fear in their eyes, the reluctance to act decisively. But beneath that, he sensed a glimmer of hope, a desperate desire for someone, anyone, to take action. As the arguments raged around him, Ritter made his decision. With a subtle gesture, he activated his neural implant, establishing a secure connection to his office. His eyes never left the council chamber as he subvocalized a message to his aide. "Prepare my private terminal. Highest encryption. I need a direct line to Admiral Jenkins, now." Outwardly, Ritter maintained his stoic demeanor, nodding and responding to the ongoing debate. But inwardly, his mind raced, formulating plans, considering contingencies. He knew the risks he was taking, both personally and for humanity as a whole. But the image of Kaylor, bound and defiant, burned in his mind. He wouldn't abandon his friend, nor would he let the Krasar's act of terror go unanswered. As the council's circular arguments continued, Ritter excused himself, citing the need for a brief recess. No one paid him much mind, too engrossed in their own posturing and fears. Ritter strode purposefully through the winding corridors of the council, his security detail struggling to keep pace. He entered his office, dismissing his staff with a curt nod. As the door sealed behind him, he activated the room's privacy field, ensuring no electronic or biological eavesdropping could penetrate. The holographic display on his desk sprang to life, showing the grizzled face of Admiral Jenkins. The old spacer's eyes were hard, his expression grim. He knew why he was being contacted. "Vincent," Jenkins said, dispensing with formalities. "I take it the council's still got its head up its collective ass?" Ritter's lips twitched in a humorless smile. "That's one way of putting it, old friend. We're out of options and out of time. Kaylor needs us, and I'll be damned if I let bureaucracy and fear keep us from acting." Jenkins nodded, his expression softening slightly. "Kaylor's a good man. Stood by us when half the galaxy wanted to keep humanity quarantined to Sol. What do you need?" Ritter leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper despite the privacy field. "I need your best, Jenkins. A small team, off the books. The kind of operatives who can pull off the impossible and leave no trace behind. We find Kaylor, we bring him home, and we send a message to every would-be terrorist in the galaxy that humanity protects its own, regardless of species." Jenkins was silent for a long moment, his eyes searching Ritter's face through the holographic display. Finally, he gave a sharp nod. "I've got just the team in mind. Captain Jack Morrison and his crew. They're the best we've got. Unconventional, adaptable, and loyal to a fault. If anyone can pull this off, it's them." Ritter felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Make it happen, Jenkins. Whatever resources they need, whatever strings need pulling, you have my full authority. But remember, officially, this operation doesn't exist. The Council can't know, not until it's done." "Understood," Jenkins replied, already tapping commands into his terminal. "I'll have Morrison and his team prepped and ready within the hour. You just worry about keeping the Council distracted while we do what needs to be done." As the transmission ended, Ritter allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The enormity of what he was setting in motion weighed heavily on him. The potential consequences for himself, for humanity, for the delicate balance of galactic politics. But as he pictured Kaylor, remembered the aliens' unwavering support during humanity's darkest hours, he knew he was making the right choice. Straightening his uniform, Chancellor Vincent Ritter prepared to return to the council chamber. He would play his part, engage in the endless debates and circular arguments. But in his mind, He was already light years away, with Morrison and his team racing against time to save a friend and preserve the fragile peace of the galaxy. As he stepped back into the corridor, Ritter's expression was one of grim determination. The bureaucrats could have their meetings and their protocols. Humanity would show the galaxy what it meant to take action, to stand by one's allies no matter the cost. And when the dust settled, when Kaylor was safely home, perhaps the Council would finally understand the unique strength that humans brought to the galactic community. With each step back towards the Council chamber, Ritter's resolve hardened. The die was cast. Now, it all came down to Morrison and his team. The fate of Commander Kaylor, the stability of the Galactic Council, and the reputation of humanity itself hung in the balance. As Ritter re-entered the chamber, the cacophony of voices washed over him. The Veylan representative was in the midst of proposing yet another diplomatic overture, his words falling on increasingly deaf ears. The Drakkar ambassador paced like a caged predator, his claws clicking against the polished floor. But now, for Ritter, this is all just formalities. Jack Morrison's communicator vibrated urgently, its pulsing light cutting through the darkness of his quarters. He awoke instantly, years of military training kicking in as he reached for the device. Admiral Jenkins's gruff voice came through, clear and tense. "Morrison, we've got a situation. Commander Kaylor's been taken by the Krasar. I need your team ready to move in 30 minutes. Jack's jaw clenched, a mix of anger and determination flashing in his eyes. "Kaylor? Damn it, that Xeno bastard's been a friend for years." "What's the plan, sir?" "This is off the books, Jack. Chancellor Ritter's orders. You're to assemble your team, infiltrate Krasar territory, locate Kaylor, and bring him home. Full autonomy, whatever it takes." "Understood, sir. We won't let you down." Morrison's mind was already racing, planning out the mission parameters. "I know you won't. Your ship's being prepped as we speak. Godspeed, Captain." The communication cut off, leaving Morrison alone in the dim light. He allowed himself a moment, just a heartbeat, to feel the weight of the mission. Then, with practiced efficiency, he began to move. Within minutes, encrypted messages were sent out to his team. Each member received the same terse command: Chimera Protocol, Hangar 7, 25 minutes. Tessa Kareen, the team's sharpshooter, was already awake, meticulously cleaning her custom-built rifle when the message came through. Her lips curled into a predatory smile as she read the orders. "About time," she muttered, slotting the final pieces of her weapon together with practiced ease. Veyran, the team's alien specialist, received the message as he meditated in his quarters. His 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, his alien physiology processing the surge of adrenaline differently from his human counterparts. He moved with fluid grace, gathering his specialized equipment and heading for the hangar. The rest of the team, Macht, the demolitions expert, Rafferty, the hacker, and Hoffman, the medic, all responded with similar alacrity. Years of training and shared missions had honed them into a precision instrument ready to be wielded at a moment's notice. Morrison reached Hangar 7 first, his eyes immediately drawn to the sleek, predatory form of their ship. The Phantom, as they called her, was a state-of-the-art stealth vessel, her hull covered in light-bending metamaterials that made her nearly invisible to both visual and electronic detection. As his team filed in, Morrison felt a surge of pride. They moved with purpose, each checking their gear one last time as they boarded. No words were necessary. They all understood the gravity of the situation. Once inside, Morrison addressed his team. "All right, people. We've got a friend in trouble. Commander Kaylor's been taken by the Krasar. Our job is to get him back." Tessa's eyes narrowed. "The Krasar? Those fanatics have been a thorn in our side for years. About time we dealt with them." Veyran's multifaceted eyes gleamed. "The Krasar are known for their complex, layered defenses. We will need to be creative in our approach." Morrison nodded. "That's why you're here, Veyran. Your knowledge of their systems will be crucial. Tessa, I want you studying every scrap of intel we have on their bases. Look for sniper perches, choke points, anything we can use to our advantage." As the Phantom lifted off, its engines barely a whisper, Morrison continued the briefing. Macht, Rafferty, I want you two working on infiltration scenarios. The Krasar will have top-notch security. I need options for getting in quiet, loud, and everything in between. The team immersed themselves in their tasks as the Phantom sliced through space, its advanced propulsion system allowing it to cover vast distances in remarkably short times. The ship's AI, a highly sophisticated program called Area, continuously updated their navigation, adjusting for stellar drift and gravitational anomalies. Hours into their journey, Rafferty called the team's attention to the main holo display. I've been analyzing Krasar communication patterns, she said, her fingers dancing over the controls. There's been an uptick in encrypted transmissions from this sector here. A red circle appeared on the star map. Morrison leaned in, studying the data. Good work, Rafferty. Veyron, does this match up with any known Krasar outposts? The alien specialist manipulated the display, overlaying various intelligence reports. Not precisely, Captain. However, the sector does contain an asteroid field that would provide excellent cover for a hidden base. Then that's where we start, Morrison decided. Tessa, any thoughts on approach vectors? The sniper had been quiet, her eyes closed as if in meditation. Now she opened them, a predatory glint in her gaze. If we come in from the system's ecliptic plane, we can use the asteroid field's own mass to mask our approach. It'll be tricky flying, but it'll keep us off their scopes. Morrison nodded approvingly. Good thinking. Macht, what's our loadout looking like? The demolitions expert grinned, pulling up a schematic of their weaponry. We're packing some serious heat, Cap. Got those new phased plasma charges you requisitioned. They'll punch through Krasar armor like it's tissue paper. Plus, the usual assortment of stun grenades, breaching charges, and a few surprises I cooked up myself. Excellent, Morrison said, a grim smile on his face. Hoffman, make sure everyone's stims are topped up. I have a feeling we're going to need every edge we can get. As they approached the Krasar-controlled space, tension began to mount in the Phantom's cockpit. The asteroid field loomed before them, a chaotic mass of rock and ice that would challenge even the most skilled pilot. Morrison took the controls himself, his hands moving with practiced precision as he guided the ship into the field. The Phantom's advanced sensors painted a real-time 3D map of their surroundings, allowing Morrison to navigate the treacherous terrain with almost prescient skill. Picking up some odd energy readings, Rafferty reported, her voice tight with concentration. Definitely artificial, but they're fluctuating. Could be some kind of cloaking technology. Veyron leaned over her shoulder, his alien eyes processing the data in ways the human mind couldn't quite grasp. Yes, I see it. Clever. They're using the natural electromagnetic interference from the asteroids to mask their presence, but there's a pattern to the fluctuations. Morrison's hands tightened on the controls. Can you lock it down? I believe so, Veyron replied, his fingers flying over the console. There, that large asteroid, approximately 3 kilometers in diameter. The energy signature is emanating from within. The team crowded around the view screen as Morrison brought the Phantom in closer. At first glance, the asteroid looked like any other, a lumpy, misshapen rock floating in the void. But as they watched, a section of its surface seemed to shimmer and distort. Holographic camouflage, Tessa breathed, a note of admiration in her voice. Top-of-the-line stuff. Morrison's eyes narrowed as he studied the asteroid. All right, people, this is it. We've found their hidey hole. Now comes the tricky part. He turned to his team, his face set in determined lines. Rafferty, I want you working on cracking their security protocols. If we can slip in without them noticing, all the better. Veyron, assist her. Your knowledge of Krasar systems could be the key. Macht, prep our gear for vacuum operations. We might need to spacewalk to reach an entry point. Tessa, start mapping out defensive positions. I want to know every possible spot they could have a gunner tucked away. As the team scrambled to their tasks, Morrison felt a familiar calm settle over him. This was what they were trained for, what they excelled at. the impossible missions, the knife's edge between success and catastrophic failure. He allowed himself a small, grim smile. The Krasar thought they were safe here, hidden away in their secret base. They had no idea what was coming for them. "Hoffman," Morrison called, "do one last check on our medical supplies. If this goes sideways, I want to make sure we can patch ourselves up long enough to get Kaylor out." The medic nodded, already moving towards the ship's small but well-equipped medical bay. "On it, Cap. I've got enough synth blood and trauma packs to put Humpty Dumpty back together again." As the Phantom hung in space, hidden among the asteroids, the team made their final preparations. Weapons were checked and rechecked, armor seals were tested, and last-minute adjustments were made to their plan. Morrison watched his team work, feeling a surge of pride. They moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine, each member anticipating the needs of the others. This was more than just a crew. This was family. 2 minutes to optimal insertion window, Aria's calm voice announced. Morrison took a deep breath, centering himself. "All right, people. We all know what's at stake here. Commander Kaylor isn't just an ally. He's a friend. He stood by humanity when half the galaxy wanted to see us quarantined. Now it's our turn to stand by him." He looked each member of his team in the eye, seeing the same determination reflected back at him. "We're going to go in there. We're going to find Kaylor, and we're going to bring him home. The Krasar think they can hide from justice behind their fancy tech and fanatical ideology. We're going to show them just how wrong they are. Remember your training, trust your instincts, and watch each other's backs. The Krasar may have home field advantage, but we've got something they don't. Each other. We're Chimera Team, and failure is not an option." As Morrison finished speaking, a hush fell over the ship. Each team member was lost in their own thoughts, mentally preparing for the challenges ahead. Tessa checked her rifle one last time, her fingers moving with practiced ease over the weapon's contours. Veyron's eyes closed briefly, his alien mind running through complex calculations and contingencies. Macht patted the pouch containing his custom explosives, a fierce grin on his face. Rafferty's fingers danced over her datapad, making last-second adjustments to their intrusion algorithms. Hoffman took a final inventory of his medical kit, ensuring every life-saving tool was in its place. Morrison watched them all, feeling a mix of pride and responsibility. These were the best of the best, handpicked for their skills and their unwavering loyalty. They were about to dive into the unknown, risking everything for a friend and for the principles they believed in. 30 seconds to insertion, Aria announced. Morrison moved to the airlock, his team falling in behind him. As they waited for the door to open, he felt a familiar surge of adrenaline. This was it. The moment where all their training, all their preparation, would be put to the test. "Remember," he said, his voice low but carrying clearly through their comm units, "we're not just fighting for Kaylor. We're fighting for every being in this galaxy who believes in justice, in freedom, in the right to live without fear. The Krasar want to rule through terror and oppression. We're going to show them that humanity and its allies stand for something greater." The airlock door slid open, revealing the vast, star-studded expanse of space. Before them, the camouflaged asteroid loomed, its hidden base waiting to be breached. "Chimera Team," Morrison said, his voice filled with quiet determination. "Let's go make history." With that, they launched themselves into the void, their mag boots engaging as they landed silently on the asteroid's surface. The mission to rescue Commander Kaylor and strike a blow against the Krasar had begun. As Chimera Team made their way across the asteroid's craggy surface, the vastness of space stretched out around them, a silent witness to their daring mission. Their suit lights were dimmed to near invisibility, relying instead on enhanced visual feeds to navigate the treacherous terrain. Rafferty's voice crackled over the comm, tense with concentration. "I'm detecting a faint energy signature about 200 meters ahead. Could be an access point." Morrison nodded, though the gesture was lost in the bulky spacesuit. "Good work, Rafferty. Tessa, take point. Everyone else, watch your steps and keep an eye on your suit integrity. One puncture out here, and it's game over. They moved forward in a practiced formation, each member covering a specific arc of fire. As they approached the location Rafferty had indicated, a barely perceptible shimmer in the asteroid's surface caught Morrison's eye. "Hold up," he whispered, though the comm made the volume irrelevant. "Veyron, what do you make of that?" The alien specialist moved forward, his four eyes focusing intently on the anomaly. After a moment he spoke, his voice filled with a mix of admiration and concern. "Ingenious. It's a phase-shifted airlock. It exists slightly out of sync with our reality, making it nearly impossible to detect unless you know exactly what to look for." Macht let out a low whistle. "Damn. How the hell do we get through something like that?" Morrison turned to Rafferty. "Ideas?" The hacker was already pulling out a specialized device, her fingers flying over its controls. "I think I can sync our suit's phase with the airlock. It'll be tricky, and we'll only have a narrow window to get through, but it should work." "Do it," Morrison ordered. "Everyone else get ready. The moment that door opens, we're in hostile territory." As Rafferty worked, Morrison felt the familiar pre-mission tension coiling in his gut. They were about to step into the unknown, facing an enemy with advanced technology and a fanatical devotion to their cause. But as he looked at his team, he felt a surge of confidence. These were the best of the best, and they had a righteous cause driving them forward. "Got it!" Rafferty exclaimed. "Syncing our suits now. We'll have exactly 30 seconds to get through before the phase shift resets." Morrison nodded. "All right, people. This is it. Remember, our primary objective is to locate and extract Commander Kaylor. Secondary objective is to gather any intel we can on Krasar operations. If we can cripple their base in the process, all the better." He paused, looking each team member in the eye through their visors. "We're about to bring the fight to an enemy that thinks they're untouchable. Let's show them what humanity is capable of when we're pushed to the wall." With a nod from Morrison, Rafferty activated the phase shift. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a silent ripple of energy, a doorway appeared in the asteroid's surface, shimmering like a mirage. "Move!" Morrison ordered, and Chimera teams sprang into action. They passed through the airlock in a rush of controlled urgency, each member moving with precision honed by countless drills and real-world operations. As the last team member cleared the threshold, the doorway shimmered and vanished, leaving no trace of their entry. Inside, they found themselves in a small, dimly lit chamber. The walls were covered in a strange, shifting pattern that seemed to hurt the eyes if looked at too long. "Some kind of visual camouflage," Veyron murmured, "designed to confuse intruders and mask the true layout of the base." Morrison nodded. "Stay sharp. Rafferty, see if you can tap into their systems. I want to know the layout of this place and where they might be holding Kaylor." As Rafferty worked, the rest of the team secured the chamber, weapons at the ready. The air was tense with anticipation, each member acutely aware that they were now deep in enemy territory, surrounded on all sides by a foe that would show no mercy if they were discovered. Morrison's mind raced, considering and discarding plans of action. They needed to move fast, but caution was equally important. One wrong move could alert the entire base to their presence, turning a rescue mission into a desperate fight for survival. "Got something," Rafferty whispered, her voice tight with excitement. "I've managed to access a partial schematic of the base. It looks like they're holding prisoners in a high-security area 3 levels down." Morrison moved to look at Rafferty's display, studying the layout. "Good work. Any sign of internal defenses or patrol patterns?" Rafferty shook her head. "Not yet. Their security is incredibly complex. It'll take time to—" She was cut off by a sudden, low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the entire asteroid. The team froze, weapons snapping up to cover all angles. "What the hell was that?" Macht hissed. Veyron's alien features were set in a grim expression. "If I'm not mistaken, that was the sound of the base's defense systems activating. It seems our presence hasn't gone as unnoticed as we'd hoped." Morrison's mind raced, quickly adapting to the new situation. All right, change of plans. Stealth is compromised, so we're switching to aggressive infiltration. Rafferty, forget about cracking their entire system. Focus on finding us a route to that detention level. Tessa, I want you watching our 6. If anything so much as twitches wrong, put a hole in it. The team acknowledged their orders with terse nods, each member settling into their new roles with practiced ease. As they prepared to move out, Morrison felt a familiar mix of tension and exhilaration. The mission had just gotten a lot more complicated, but in a way, this was what they lived for. The impossible odds, the knife's edge between success and failure. The corridors of the Krasar base seemed to pulse with an eerie, alien energy as Chimera team advanced towards their objective. The air grew thick with tension, each step bringing them closer to their captured ally and the inevitable confrontation with their fanatical foes. Morrison led the way, his enhanced senses on high alert. The team moved in perfect synchronization, a testament to their years of training and shared combat experience. Tessa, her sniper rifle at the ready, covered their rear, while Veyron's alien eyes scanned for any hidden threats. "We're approaching the detention level," Rafferty whispered, her eyes fixed on the holographic display projected from her wrist computer. "Security's getting tighter. I'm detecting multiple energy signatures ahead." Morrison nodded, his mind racing through tactical scenarios. "Macht, prep a breach charge. Hoffman, be ready with stims. This is going to get messy." As they rounded a corner, the corridor ahead suddenly erupted in a cacophony of light and sound. Krasar warriors, their armor gleaming with an otherworldly sheen, poured out from hidden alcoves. Energy weapons discharged, filling the air with sizzling bolts of plasma. "Ambush!" Morrison roared, diving for cover behind a jutting piece of alien architecture. "Return fire!" The team reacted with lightning speed, years of training kicking in. Tessa's rifle barked, each shot finding its mark with uncanny precision. Macht lobbed a concussion grenade, its detonation sending Krasar warriors flying like ragdolls. But the Krasar had the advantage of numbers and home territory. Their weapons' fire intensified, pinning Chimera team down. Morrison gritted his teeth, knowing they needed to break this deadlock fast or risk being overwhelmed. "Veyron," he shouted over the din of battle, "can you hack their comm systems? Give us some breathing room." The alien specialist's fingers danced over his equipment, his 4 eyes narrowed in concentration. "Working on it, Captain. Their encryption is... Wait, I think I've got something." Suddenly, the Krasar's coordinated assault faltered, their communications filled with static and conflicting orders, sowing confusion in their ranks. "Now!" Morrison bellowed. "Push forward!" Chimera teams surged from their cover, capitalizing on the moment of chaos. Morrison led the charge, his enhanced strength and reflexes allowing him to close the distance to the nearest Krasar warrior in a heartbeat. His fist connected with the alien's faceplate, the impact cracking the reinforced material and sending the warrior crumpling to the ground. But as Morrison turned to engage his next opponent, a searing pain erupted in his side. A Krasar energy blade had found a gap in his armor, slicing deep into his flesh. The world seemed to slow down as Morrison stumbled, his vision blurring from the shock and pain. He could hear his team shouting, their voices distant and muffled. The Krasar warrior who had struck him loomed over him, weapon raised for a killing blow. In that moment, Morrison saw not just his own death, but the failure of the mission, the abandonment of Kaelor, the shattering of humanity's reputation in the galactic community. Something deep within Morrison ignited. A primal, unrelenting will to survive, to succeed, to prove that humanity would not be so easily defeated. With a roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the base, Morrison surged to his feet. The Krasar warrior stumbled back, its alien features contorted in what could only be described as shock. It had seen the human take a mortal wound, had expected him to fall. Instead, Morrison stood before it, blood streaming from his side, eyes blazing with an intensity that seemed to transcend mere physical limitations. Morrison's hand shot to his belt, retrieving an auto-injector filled with a cocktail of combat stims and experimental nanites. Without hesitation, he jammed it into his thigh, flooding his system with chemicals designed to push the human body far beyond its normal limits. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Pain receded to a dull roar in the back of his mind. Strength surged through his limbs. His vision sharpened, the world around him seeming to slow down as his perception accelerated. The Krasar warrior, still reeling from the unexpected turn of events, barely had time to raise its weapon before Morrison was upon it. The human's augmented fist connected with devastating force, shattering the alien's faceplate and sending it flying back into its comrades. "Chimera!" Morrison's voice boomed, carrying an authority that seemed to cut through the chaos of battle. "Rally on me. We're taking the fight to them." His team, momentarily stunned by their leader's miraculous recovery, quickly snapped back into action. They formed up around Morrison, their movements crisp and precise despite the shock of seeing their captain shrug off what should have been a fatal wound. Tessa's rifle sang out a deadly melody, each shot finding its mark with unerring accuracy. Macht's explosives detonated in carefully choreographed sequence, herding the Krasar into killing zones where Chimera Team's superior tactics could overcome the aliens' numerical advantage. Veyron's alien technology interfaced seamlessly with the Krasar systems, causing force fields to falter and security doors to slam shut at crucial moments. Rafferty's hacking skills turned the base's own defenses against its defenders, automated turrets swiveling to target their former masters. And through it all, Morrison led from the front, a whirlwind of destruction that seemed to defy the very laws of nature. Each blow he landed carried the force of humanity's determination. Each order he barked resonated with the unshakable will of his species. The Krasar, for all their advanced technology and fanatical devotion, found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. They had expected to face mere mortals, beings bound by the same limitations as themselves. Instead, they were confronted with what seemed to be living legends, warriors who could shrug off mortal wounds and fight with the fury of the gods themselves. As Morrison led his team deeper into the heart of the Krasar base, the aliens' resistance began to crumble. Word spread through their ranks of the unstoppable human and his team, of how they had survived an ambush that should have annihilated them, of how their leader fought on despite injuries that would have felled any other being. Fear, an emotion long forgotten by the Krasar in their arrogance, began to take hold. They had thought themselves the superior species, destined to rule the galaxy. Now, faced with the raw, unbridled power of humanity's finest, that certainty was shaken to its core. Morrison, for his part, was operating on a level beyond conscious thought. The combat stims and nanites coursing through his system had pushed him into a state of hyper-awareness, where every movement, every decision flowed with liquid grace. He could see the patterns in the Krasar's tactics, could anticipate their moves before they made them. "Tessa," he called out, his voice cutting through the din of battle. "High ground, second level. Their reinforcements will be coming through that corridor." The sniper acknowledged with a curt nod, her grappling hook already deploying to lift her to the vantage point Morrison had identified. Seconds later, the staccato report of her rifle confirmed the accuracy of his prediction. "Macht, Veyron, flank left. There's a power conduit running through that wall. Overload it and we can seal off their escape route." The demolitions expert and the alien specialist moved in perfect synchronization, their disparate skills combining to turn the Krasar's own infrastructure against them. A series of precisely placed charges, detonated in harmony with a surge of hacked power, caused an entire section of the base to seal itself off, trapping a significant portion of the enemy forces. As Chimera Team pressed their advantage, Morrison felt a surge of pride in his people, in humanity as a whole. Here they were, newcomers to the galactic stage, facing an enemy with vastly superior numbers and technology. Yet through sheer determination, adaptability, and the unbreakable bonds of comradeship, they were turning the tide. The Krasar, for all their vaunted superiority, had never faced an enemy like humanity before. They had no frame of reference for beings who could push themselves beyond all rational limits, who would endure any hardship, overcome any obstacle, to achieve their goals. As they approached the detention level where Kaylor was being held, Morrison felt the combat stims beginning to wear off. The pain from his wound, dulled but never fully gone, began to reassert itself. He knew he was operating on borrowed time, that the human body, no matter how enhanced, could only be pushed so far. But as he looked at his team, saw the unwavering trust and determination in their eyes, he knew that failure was not an option. They had come too far, endured too much to falter now. "All right, Chimera," Morrison said, his voice steady despite the pain racking his body. "One final push. Kaylor's just beyond that door. Let's show these Krasar bastards what humanity is really capable of." As the team prepared for the final assault, Morrison allowed himself a grim smile. The Krasar had thought to break humanity's spirit by taking one of their allies. Instead, they had awakened a force beyond their comprehension, a species whose potential knew no bounds. With a nod to his team, Morrison raised his weapon. "Chimera team, breach and clear. Let's bring our friend home." As one, they moved forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The fate of Kaylor, the reputation of humanity, and perhaps the future of the galaxy itself hung in the balance. But with Morrison leading the charge, even gravely wounded yet unbreakable in spirit, there was no doubt in anyone's mind that they would prevail. The final barrier between Chimera team and their objective loomed before them. A massive blast door, its alien alloys gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. Morrison, his body pushed far beyond normal human limits, stood at the forefront, his team arrayed behind him in perfect formation. "Macht!" Morrison growled, his voice strained but unwavering. "Breach it!" The demolitions expert grinned, already pulling specialized charges from his pack. "With pleasure, Cap. Everyone, ears on!" As the team took cover, Macht worked with practiced efficiency, placing the charges at key structural points. Seconds later, a series of controlled explosions rocked the corridor. When the smoke cleared, the impenetrable door lay in twisted ruins. "Go, go, go!" Morrison shouted, leading the charge into the detention area. The scene that greeted them was chaos incarnate. Krasar guards, caught off guard by the sudden breach, scrambled to form a defensive line. Prisoners of various species, sensing an opportunity, began to riot in their cells. And there, at the far end of the chamber, they saw him, Commander Kaylor, battered but unbowed, his alien features set in a mask of defiance. "Tessa, Varen! Suppressing fire!" Morrison barked. "Rafferty, get those cell doors open! Hoffman, with me!" The team moved like a well-oiled machine. Tessa's precision fire kept the Krasar pinned down, while Varen's alien tech created localized distortion fields, further confusing the enemy. Rafferty's fingers flew over her hollow interface, cell doors hissing open one by one. Morrison and Hoffman fought their way through the melee, the captain's augmented strength and the medic's precisely aimed stun darts clearing a path. They reached Kaylor's cell just as Rafferty's hack sprung the lock. "Took you long enough," Kaylor quipped, his mandibles clicking in what Morrison recognized as the alien equivalent of a grin. "Traffic was hell," Morrison shot back, helping the alien to his feet. "Can you move?" Kaylor nodded, straightening to his full, impressive height. "Just get me a weapon. I've got a score to settle with our gracious hosts." Hoffman quickly assessed Kaylor's condition, administering a cocktail of stimulants and pain suppressors. "He's good to go, Cap. But we need to get him to proper medical facilities ASAP." Morrison nodded grimly. "All right, people, we've got what we came for. Now comes the hard part, getting out of here alive." As if in response to his words, a new wave of Krasar forces poured into the detention area, their weapons filling the air with lethal energy bolts. "Macht!" Morrison called out. "We need an exit, now!" The demolitions expert was already in motion, sizing up the far wall of the detention area. "On it, Cap! Everyone, get ready to move!" Seconds later, a precisely placed charge blew a hole in the wall, revealing a maintenance corridor beyond. "Go! Go! Go!" Morrison shouted, providing covering fire as his team and the freed prisoners rushed through the breach. The escape through the bowels of the Krasar base was a blur of frantic action. Every turn seemed to bring new challenges: security checkpoints, automated defenses, squads of Krasar warriors. But Chimera Team, bolstered by the freed prisoners and driven by the urgency of their mission, fought through it all. Veyron's knowledge of alien tech proved invaluable, allowing them to bypass security systems and turn the base's own defenses against their pursuers. Tessa's marksmanship eliminated key targets with surgical precision, disrupting the Krasar's attempts to organize an effective pursuit. Rafferty, her mind interfaced directly with the base's systems, guided them through the labyrinthine corridors, always one step ahead of their enemies. Macht's explosives sealed passages behind them, buying precious seconds and confounding their pursuers. Through it all, Morrison led from the front, his body pushed to its absolute limits. The wound in his side had reopened, leaving a trail of blood in his wake, but he refused to falter. Every step was a battle of will against the encroaching darkness of unconsciousness. But he drew strength from his team, from the mission, from the very essence of what it meant to be human. As they neared the hangar where their escape ship waited, the Krasar unleashed their full fury. Heavy weapons fire rocked the corridor, and the screech of metal announced the arrival of combat mechs. "Macht! Veyron!" Morrison shouted over the din. "Buy us some time!" The demolitions expert and the alien specialist shared a look of understanding. Macht pulled out his last remaining charges, while Veyron's hands danced over his alien tech. "It's been an honor," Veyron said, his multiple eyes blinking in what Morrison recognized as deep emotion. "Save the speeches," Macht grinned. "We're not done yet." The two turned back, facing the oncoming horde. What followed was a display of destructive artistry that would be spoken of in hushed tones for years to come. Macht's explosives, guided by Veyron's precise calculations, brought down entire sections of the base's superstructure. The Krasar advance was halted in its tracks, buried under tons of debris. But the victory came at a cost. As the last charge detonated, a stray energy bolt caught Veyron in the shoulder, spinning him around. Macht grabbed his alien comrade, dragging him back towards the team. "Man down!" Macht called out as they rejoined the group. Hoffman was there in an instant, his medical kit already open. "I've got him! Keep moving!" They burst into the hangar, the sleek form of their escape ship waiting like a beacon of hope. But their elation was short-lived. A squad of Krasar elites had beaten them there, their weapons trained on the ship. "Tessa!" Morrison barked. The sniper was already in motion, her rifle singing its deadly song. 3 Krasar fell before the rest could even register the attack. The remaining elites scattered, seeking cover behind various pieces of equipment. "Rafferty, get that ship fired up," Morrison ordered. "Everyone else, covering fire!" The team laid down a blistering barrage as Rafferty sprinted for the ship, her fingers flying over her datapad to initiate the startup sequence remotely. The hangar became a storm of energy bolts and explosive ordnance, the air thick with ozone and the screams of the wounded. Kaylor, despite his injuries, fought with renewed vigor. He had appropriated a Krasar weapon and was using it with deadly efficiency, his intimate knowledge of his captor's tactics proving invaluable. "Morrison!" he called out during a lull in the fighting. "Their reinforcements will be here any second. We need to leave, now!" The human captain nodded grimly. "Chimera, fall back to the ship. Leapfrog pattern." The team began to withdraw, each member providing covering fire for the others. Tessa's precision shots kept the Krasar pinned down, while Macht's last remaining grenades created chaos in the enemy ranks. As they neared the ship, disaster struck. A lucky shot from a Krasar heavy weapon struck the hangar's main support column. With a groan of tortured metal, the entire structure began to collapse. "Move!" Morrison roared, physically throwing Hoffman and a wounded Veyron up the ship's ramp. The team scrambled aboard as debris rained down around them. Morrison was the last to enter, diving through the closing hatch as a massive section of the ceiling crashed down behind him. Inside the ship, chaos reigned. Alarms blared as Rafferty fought with the controls. "What's the holdup?" Morrison demanded, strapping himself into the co-pilot's seat. Rafferty's face was a mask of concentration and growing panic. The collapse damaged the primary ignition sequence. I'm trying to reroute through secondary systems, but... She was cut off as the ship rocked violently. Through the view screen, they could see Krasar forces pouring into the damaged hangar, heavy weapons being brought to bear. "Figure it out fast," Morrison growled, "or we're not getting out of here alive." As energy bolts began to impact the ship's hull, the team felt the weight of their entire mission, of their very survival, hanging by a thread. The next few moments would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of human-alien relations in the galaxy. The ship shuddered violently as another volley of Krasar energy weapons impacted its shields. In the cockpit, alarms blared incessantly, warning of multiple system failures. Morrison, his face a mask of blood and determination, gripped the controls with white-knuckled intensity. "Rafferty!" he barked, his voice hoarse from the smoke filling the cabin. "We need those engines now!" The tech specialist's fingers danced across her console, her cybernetic implants glowing as she interfaced directly with the ship's systems. "I'm trying, Cap. The main power coupling is fried. I'm rerouting through auxiliary..." Another blast rocked the ship, throwing Morrison against his restraints. He tasted blood in his mouth, felt the edges of his vision growing dark, but he couldn't falter. Not now. Not when they were so close. "Tessa! Macht!" he shouted into the comm. "Keep those bastards off us!" Outside, the hangar bay was a scene of utter chaos. Krasar warriors poured in from every entrance, their weapons filling the air with deadly energy bolts. Tessa's precision fire from the ship's gun turret cut them down in droves, while Macht's last remaining explosives created temporary barriers of flame and debris. In the main cabin, Hoffman worked feverishly to stabilize Veyron, the alien specialist's unique physiology presenting a challenge even for the experienced medic. Kaylor, despite his own injuries, had taken up a defensive position near the airlock, using a captured Krasar weapon to pick off any enemies that got too close. "Morrison!" Rafferty's voice cut through the din. "I've got it! Firing up the engines now!" The ship's engines roared to life, the sudden surge of power causing the entire vessel to lurch. Morrison's hands flew over the controls, his augmented reflexes allowing him to compensate for the unexpected movement. "Hold on to something!" he shouted as he engaged the thrusters. The ship lifted off, debris and bodies scattering in its wake. But the Krasar weren't about to let their prey escape so easily. Heavy weapons fire lanced out, scoring hits along the ship's hull. Morrison gritted his teeth, pushing the engines to their limit. The ship rocketed towards the hangar's exit, weaving through a storm of energy bolts and missiles. "Macht!" Morrison called out. "We need a hole!" The demolitions expert didn't need to be told twice. From his position at the rear gun turret, he targeted the hangar's force field generators. A series of precisely aimed shots later, and the shimmering barrier flickered and died. The ship burst out of the hangar and into the planet's turbulent atmosphere, but their ordeal was far from over. Krasar fighter craft were already in pursuit, their sleek forms cutting through the air with deadly grace. "Evasive maneuvers!" Kaylor shouted, his alien eyes wide as he watched the tactical display. "Their Sunfire-class interceptors are locking on." Morrison's world narrowed to the ship's controls and the swarm of enemy fighters on his display. Every move, every decision could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. He pushed his augmented body to its absolute limit, his hands moving faster than any normal human could follow. The ship dove and weaved through the planet's upper atmosphere, trailing fire and debris. Tessa and Macht worked in perfect synchronization, their combined fire keeping the worst of the pursuit at bay. But for every fighter they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. "Rafferty!" Morrison shouted, his voice strained as he pulled the ship into a bone-crushing turn. "We need more power to the engines." "I'm giving it all she's got, Cap," Rafferty replied, her voice tight with concentration. "Any more, and we'll blow the whole power grid." A warning klaxon blared, cutting through the chaos. "Missile lock," Kaylor warned. 3, no, 4 incoming." Morrison's mind raced, calculating trajectories and running through options at inhuman speed. There was no way to outrun them, no way to shoot them all down in time. Unless… "Macht!" he barked. "Dump the remaining charges! Now!" The demolitions expert didn't hesitate. With a few quick commands, he jettisoned his last remaining explosives out the rear of the ship. Seconds later, Morrison cut the engines. The sudden loss of thrust caught their pursuers off guard. As the Krasar fighters scrambled to adjust their course, they flew right into the cloud of floating explosives. Macht's detonator signal found its mark, and the sky behind them erupted in a massive fireball. The shockwave hit their ship like a hammer blow, sending it tumbling end over end. Warning lights flashed across every console as system after system redlined. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if they had escaped one death only to hurtle into another. But Morrison wasn't done yet. With the last reserves of his strength, he wrestled the ship back under control. The engines sputtered back to life, and with a final desperate burst of acceleration, they broke free of the planet's gravity well. As the blackness of space enveloped them, a collective sigh of relief went through the ship. They had done it. Against all odds, they had escaped, but the cost had been high. As the adrenaline of their flight faded, Morrison felt the full weight of his injuries crashing down on him. The world spun, darkness creeping in at the edges of his vision. "Cap!" Rafferty's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Morrison, stay with us." Morrison tried to respond, but his body had finally reached its limit. As consciousness slipped away, his last thought was of his team, of the mission they had accomplished against impossible odds. The next thing Morrison knew, he was lying on a medical cot in the ship's small infirmary. The steady beep of monitoring equipment filled the air, and he could feel the familiar tingle of nanites working to repair his damaged body. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Cap." Hoffman's voice came from nearby. The medic's face swam into view, looking tired but relieved. "You had us worried there for a bit." Morrison tried to sit up, but Hoffman's firm hand on his chest kept him in place. "Easy there, hero. You've got a lot of healing to do." "The team?" Morrison managed to croak out, his throat dry and raw. "All accounted for," Hoffman assured him. "Varen's stable. Everyone else is nursing some bumps and bruises, but we're all alive thanks to you." Before Morrison could respond, the infirmary door slid open. Kaylor ducked through, his tall frame barely fitting through the human-sized opening. "Ah, our intrepid captain awakens," the alien said, his mandibles clicking in what Morrison had come to recognize as a smile. "I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of contacting the council. They're quite interested in hearing about our adventure." Morrison groaned, only partly from pain. "I bet they are. Any chance we can pretend this was all just a bad dream?" Kaylor's multifaceted eyes glittered with amusement. "I'm afraid not, my friend. But if it's any consolation, I believe your actions here will go a long way towards changing many minds about humanity's place in the galactic community." The alien's expression grew more serious. "Morrison, I owe you and your team a debt I can never fully repay. What you did, the risks you took, I've never seen anything like it. The Krasar thought they knew what humans were capable of, but they had no idea. None of us did." Morrison waved off the praise, wincing as the movement pulled at his healing injuries. "We don't leave our friends behind. Simple as that." Kaylor shook his head in wonder. "Simple to you, perhaps, but to risk everything, to push yourselves beyond all rational limits for the sake of an alien ally. It's extraordinary, Morrison. Truly extraordinary." As the alien spoke, Morrison's gaze drifted to the nearby viewport. Stars streaked by in brilliant lines of light as the ship hurtled through hyperspace, carrying them back towards Council space and safety. A thought occurred to him then, born perhaps of the lingering effects of combat stims and pain medication. He chuckled softly, drawing curious looks from both Hoffman and Kaylor. "You know," Morrison said, a wry grin spreading across his face, "after all this, I think it's about time we finally got around to showing you a proper Earth Christmas, Kaylor. What do you say? Once we've sorted out this mess with the Council, of course. Kaylor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound Morrison had come to associate with surprised laughter. My friend, after what you've shown me of humanity's spirit, I would be honored to partake in any of your traditions. Though I must admit, the concept of this Christmas still confuses me greatly. Hoffman rolled his eyes, but couldn't suppress a grin of his own. Only you, Cap, could go from nearly dying to planning holiday parties in the span of 5 minutes. The ship continued its flight through the stars. In the distance, barely visible against the backdrop of space, the first beacons marking the edge of Council territory began to appear. They had made it. Against all odds, against an enemy that had thought them inferior, Chimera team had pulled off the impossible. They had struck a blow against the Krasar, rescued a valuable ally, and in doing so, had shown the galaxy a glimpse of humanity's true potential. As Morrison drifted off to sleep, lulled by the hum of the ship's engines and the quiet conversation of his friends, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity was ready to face them. They had proven themselves on the galactic stage, and the universe would never be the same. The ship streaked onwards, carrying with it not just a team of heroes, but a message to all who would underestimate humanity. We are here, we are strong, and we are just getting started. Hey there again. I'm glad you've come so far. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to hit the like button and the subscribe button. This is really important to the channel. Really important. And I have one more thing for you. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.